A couple of months later, after this fight, Arturo Gatti was in a wild car chase with his Dodge Viper.
Sorry, we do get carried away sometimes.
I see how it is. Make me get all the criticism.
Yes, people, I am Savage Dan.
I'm Paulie Malignaggi.
You are watching Mouthpiece, the official boxer podcast. Welcome back to Mouthpiece, the most unfiltered and the greatest boxing show on YouTube. I'm Savage Dan.
I'm Paulie the Magic Man Malignaggi.
And I won't get into Chelsea's FA Cup win. It was a decent enough win, but Paulie, who do you support actually?
I grew up as a kid. My father got me a Juventus kit when I was very, very young, so I liked Juventus for while I was growing up. But then in 2007, when I won a world title, AC Milan invited me to Milanello for a whole week, and I stayed over at Milan. So I gave them a lot of love, and it was a really great team to hang out with because they had just won the Champions League a few months earlier over Liverpool. So at that time, it was such an experience that I started giving Milan a lot of love, even publicly, you know. At this point, I'll be honest, I probably root just for the Serie A in general. I enjoy the Serie A on the weekends. I don't really get emotional over who wins and who loses, unless the teams are in Europe. I do root for the league as a whole, and I root for Serie A teams, which has not been a good year in Europe for Serie A. so it's not.
It hasn't. But let me remind everyone, this is a boxing show. Sorry, we do get carried away sometimes. As always, remember to like, comment, subscribe. And speaking of comments, one of the best ones from last week was, can you rank the four kings? And those four kings being Hagler, Hearns, Duran, and Leonard. I'll leave that to you, Paulie.
Dan, this is such a controversial subject because it's going to draw emotion no matter what. I mean, who do you... First of all, it's very difficult to rank them, right? Leonard is always like the darling of everybody. Sugar Ray Leonard, everybody always loves Sugar Ray Leonard, and he's the darling. So he's always everyone's universal number one. But you can even make a case that he's not the universal number one. I also have a big problem with Wilfred Benitez not being in the four kings as well. I mean, Wilfred Benitez has a clear win over Roberto Duran. He lost a 15-round decision to Tommy Hearns when Duran was knocked out in 2 rounds to Hearns. I guess because Benitez never fought Hagler while the other guys all fought each other. I don't really get it, but I mean I respect all four of the four kings nonetheless, and it's very hard to rank them. Because let's look at it from the Leonard perspective, right? If you rank Leonard number one, he's got the win over Hearns. He waited 8 years for a rematch where he was given a draw where Hearns clearly won the rematch, even though he wouldn't give Hearns a rematch, right? And even in the first fight, Hearns was ahead, and Leonard got the stoppage. All credit to him for showing character, skill, will, all of that good stuff. But if you look at it over the course of 2 fights, Hearns won a lot more rounds over Leonard. A lot more. I mean, he was winning. He won more rounds in the first fight, and he clearly won more rounds in the second fight as well when he was awarded the draw. So you even have something controversial there, right? You have Leonard beating Hagler. Again, Leonard is one of my favorite fighters. I used to watch him and try to copy a lot of things, so this is no discredit to Leonard. But again, you try to call a spade a spade. He beat Hagler in a 12-round fight at a time when 15 rounds were the world championship fights, was the world championship distance. He forced Hagler into a 12-round fight. Then he forced Hagler to wear bigger gloves in the fight. They wore bigger gloves than when it should have been, I think, 10 ounces. I don't remember what. I think it was 12 ounces maybe, the fight gloves. Somebody get me the exact fact, but I know that they had to wear bigger gloves. And the ring was the size of the ring was the size of Anfield. You know what I'm saying? It was huge. You know, so it was you know, all politics on the side of Leonard, and still Leonard, I still think even in that ring, if the fight is 15 rounds, I think Hagler catches up to him because he was starting to really close the gap. So again, I know Leonard is a darling, and again, personally, I love Leonard because stylistically, he was a guy that I used to love to watch and try to learn from because he had a speed style. But you have to also kind of put into perspective these other guys to where you can kind of mix and match these guys. For me, there's not a universal number one here. It's just a matter of who you like, personality-wise, charisma-wise, style-wise, and obviously Leonard is everyone's favorite. But in reality, you can make a case for a lot of those guys. How do you look at it? Hearns was obliterated by Hagler, but he obliterated Duran. You know?
In a way, there is no clear answer. You can only give your favorite in rank, I guess.
Okay. My favorite fighter of that era, to be honest, is not even in the 4. Is Wilfred Benitez. You know what I'm saying? That's why I mentioned him. Wilfred Benitez is my favorite fighter of that era. But after that, you know, who do we go with? Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, Duran. I mean, is that how probably most people would rank them?
I'm gonna just take your first answer because I fear it might be the only one we get. So guys, whoever's backstage, whoever's upstairs.
Why you always put me on the spot? What about your pick for the Four Kings?
Because I read the brief and you don't.
I see how it is. Make me get all the criticism.
To be fair, I wouldn't be any better than you at answering that. I have no idea how I'd even begin to rank those whilst trying to do it very logically. I'm only just going to go with what I liked best. I'm going to go Hagler as my number one. And it doesn't really matter where the rest of them go because they're all pretty much there and about. They're all fantastic fighters anyway. So, yeah, tough comment, tough question.
I can't even argue with a Hagler number one ranking. I can't, because like I said, I think if you have that fight under normal circumstances for 1987, which is when they fought, under normal 1987 circumstances, Hagler probably knocks Leonard out.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of those fighters, we know that was an era of boxing that was so tough. In terms of mentality, their regime, there was something different. It almost was like, real life Rocky stories all over the place.
I just feel like there was more passion. I mean, everybody always fights for money, obviously. You always want to secure your financial future, but it wasn't just about money. Like, you got to understand, Leonard and Hearns fought in their early primes. I mean, you don't even see that. You see guys marinating these super fights for so long that by the time they have them, they're not even in their primes anymore. And they don't have that rage inside them where you're going to put it all on the line when they fight. It's almost like it becomes a dance, like Mayweather-Pacquiao. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to when you fought in those days, when you fought in your prime, you were still chasing greatness. So Leonard and Hearns, that fight, you could see they're still chasing something. They're already considered great fighters, but there's still a lot to prove for both fighters. So they fought that way. They fought the fight that way. You know what I'm saying? And that is why that era is so loved, because although you have guys obviously making money important, which it always is. This is prize fighting. You also had a passion for boxing, a respect for boxing, for the championship, for the love of being great, a legacy, which I feel like no matter how much fighters today say that, it's still secondary to your bank account. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that's wrong necessarily, but it does decrease the love of the sport for the fans, because the fans recognize this as well, and they love to see guys. They love to root for guys and talk about guys who put it all on the line.
It's almost like it's becoming slightly more of a business than it is a sport, which is understandable, but it's not great. For a fan, you want to see the best fights all the time. There's obviously a lot of cold wars in boxing and a lot of fighters that want to fight each other but can't for various reasons, networks, promotions, all of that kind of stuff. The only people that really lose are the fans.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's not a lot we can do about it because it's becoming more and more political in that way. I remember Mike Tyson said, these guys aren't fighters. He goes, I was a fighter. I wanted to hurt you. These guys are businessmen. To a degree, you have to be a businessman. I mean, but also your legacy matters. Look at what Hagler did after he lost the Leonard fight. He said, no, you were not going to buy him. You weren't even going to put him in a position where he could get robbed again.
Let's review this weekend's results. Okolie is now the WBO world champion after beating Głowacki in the 6th round, I believe it was. It was a 6th round KO.
Even I picked Okolie, but I thought it would be more competitive. I mean, I told you, there's something special about a guy who makes that decision in that point in his life and then follows through with it. Like we talked about Lawrence Okolie last week, when he watched Anthony Joshua. He was working at McDonald's, and he watched Anthony Joshua win a gold medal. He decided, you know what, I'm going to be a pro boxer, and I'm going to do that. Yeah. A lot of people say that. A lot of people say, you know what, man, what are they doing? I got it wrong. I got to go change my life. But they don't actually follow through, because following through it takes a special kind of psychology, a mentality. This guy, we got the proof. I mean, that Eddie Hearn employee of the month, but in reality, he decided that, and he went from that to what we saw over the weekend. A world champion, And a guy who, on his way up, was already scaring people that you kind of could see he was going to become a world champion. It wasn't like, oh, he accomplished the dream against the odds. It was only against the odds when he started. But once he started to do it, I mean, you could see this guy had a special kind of mentality. And obviously his awkward style, his determination, and everything else, and his power. His power worked for him very well.
Big power. It says it. I mean, look, some people wait their whole life trying to pick up British domestic titles, Europeans. He's done it in 16 fights. And when I say done it, he's become a world champion, beating a very good champion. Or he didn't beat the champion, but Głowacki was a previous champion. So he is look, he's got the cruiserweight division on red alert, I suppose, you know, and when you look at what's in front of him, you know, he's talking about going to fight Bradis, who is probably the big guy at cruiserweight, and I'm not even sure if he can beat Okolie. Do you know what I mean? Okolie is so awkward, so long, got such power that unless you actually really enjoy fighting, fighters that are longer than you, and you're very good at judging distance and slipping inside jabs and stuff like that, you're gonna have a really, really hard night's work against Lawrence Okolie.
Yeah, because you don't have to make too many mistakes to get knocked out of the fight. You know, in that weight class, Lawrence's power is really, truly effective. You know, and so you have to kind of be aggressive because he's got this. He's so tall for that weight class, and he kind of knows how to use his awkwardness and height to his advantage. So you've got to take the chances. And you can't take too many wrong chances with him before you find yourself out of the fight. Głowacki got beat up. I didn't expect that. You know, I expected Głowacki to have some success and force Okolie to have some moments that he hasn't experienced in his pro career. But you know, I thought Okolie would come out of it late because Okolie's power, I felt would eventually wear down Głowacki. But it was a hard fight to pick for me. And then when I watched it, I'm like, this guy's making it look so simple.
Very, very, very good performance. You know, the cruiserweight division is a division that, you know, for obvious reasons, kind of gets overlooked a lot of the times. There's loads of talent in it, but because it's not quite heavyweight, it doesn't seem to always get the attention it deserves.
For me, that's so BS and terrible that the media forces this, because I blame the media for this crap, man. I mean, really, you have a cruiserweight division that if guys would have stayed at cruiserweight, imagine you would have had, because Usyk at heavyweight, come on, let's face it, he's winning, but he's not that impressive at heavyweight. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not scary to the world champion. So let's say you had Usyk that had stayed at cruiserweight. You know, you had Gassiev, who was a scary cruiserweight, but at heavyweight he's kind of small, but he had scary power at cruiserweight. Dorticos. Yeah. You have, like I said, Dorticos. You have Głowacki just got taken out. Bradis, and now you've got Okolie. Bro, you've got an amazing weight class. If you stop forcing these guys to go up to heavyweight, because if you would just stop making these guys feel like their weight class doesn't matter.
It's the only division where we have that. It's the only one as well where you know, whether you're at lightweight, welterweight, it doesn't matter. You don't feel forced to have to go up to the elite division. But cruiserweight, I don't know why, but that has always been the narrative that if you are a good cruiser, even going back to, you know, the days of Evander Holyfield, once you've completed it, you have to go up.
Even before Evander Holyfield, Bob Foster got smoked by Joe Frazier because he tried to do. Actually, Bob Foster was at light heavyweight actually, but I think they created the cruiserweight division after that. But nonetheless, yeah, since they created it, you're right. Since they created it, it's always been this mystique about, you know, it's just a pit stop on the way to the heavyweight division, and you ruin it. Because I think if you had let those guys all stay at cruiserweight, right? Can you imagine a cruiserweight division with the guys I just named? They're all still active. Yeah. Just a lot of them left for the heavyweight division. Some of them did, you know? Yeah. So you would actually have a more fun weight class than the heavyweight division. If all those guys were at cruiserweight, that would be must-watch TV. If all those guys were cruiserweight battling each other, that would be must-watch TV. Instead, you've got half of them or a percentage of them in the heavyweight division who, okay, they're winning, but they're not really a threat. And then the other guys are remaining at cruiserweight, wondering when they're going to go to heavyweight. So what are you doing? Like, the boxing can't stop getting in its own way, bro. That's the problem.
Speaking of cruiserweights then, and seeing as the media doesn't give the cruiserweight division as much respect and as much shine as it should, we'll do it here on Mouthpiece. Who would you say is the most successful, the best cruiserweight of all time?
You know, it's an interesting question because you haven't had the cruiserweight division around for that long, maybe 3-4 decades. Obviously, you can't have that conversation without Evander Holyfield in it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a question between, for my money, it's a question between Holyfield, David Haye, and Alexander Usyk. For me, the most successful cruiserweights. Then you have to kind of have your pick among them. But for me, those are the top cruiserweights I've seen in my life. With all respect to guys like Dwight Muhammad Qawi and was Spinks a cruiserweight? I don't even know if Spinks went to cruiserweight.
Yeah, I think he was.
Yeah, he was. Okay.
But for me, I mean, there's only one name that jumps off the page at me, and that's Evander Holyfield. And it would have jumped off the page at me even more if he didn't go to heavyweight. But he was such a dominant heavyweight, to be fair, as well. It's just a proper fighter.
And maybe that's why there is this standard, because he set that standard, and then he went to the heavyweight division and also became a dominant champion. And I feel like that kind of set a precedent that. It's so difficult. I mean, first of all, heavyweights are so much bigger now too. It's crazy. They were big enough when Holyfield was going up to the heavyweight division, but now you got guys 6'6", 6'7", 6'8". Like these cruiserweights are not. They can't fill out that way. There's no way. Even Okolie, who's a massive cruiserweight at 6'5", he's like a toothpick though. How's that guy gonna fill out? He's past his developmental age. You're a grown man already. So how are you gonna put on that much weight? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, bro. I feel like they put these impossible tasks in front of these guys.
Do you know what? I've actually always looked at that jump between light heavyweight and cruiserweight. I remember it even as an amateur. I don't understand why, when you're going from 140 to 147, yes, it's 7 pounds here, it's 3 kilograms. That jump between light heavyweight and cruiserweight is 10 kilograms. That is huge.
I assume, I can't speak from personal experience because I was never anywhere near those weight classes. I'm a little guy. But I assume it's because the percentage of your body weight, so you're bigger, so it's still a smaller percentage of your body weight because you're a bigger guy overall, but it's still a difficult jump. When you talk about light heavyweight to cruiserweight, like, so even right now, I'd consider even Beterbiev could go to cruiserweight, But then what happens? If he starts knocking out a few cruiserweights, are they going to start telling him he's got to be a heavyweight? Beterbiev's too small to be a heavyweight. He's a dominant light heavyweight, but he's too small to go up to heavyweight. But the instant the guy goes to cruiserweight, right away they're going to be asking him. As soon as he knocks out one cruiserweight, they're going to be asking him when he's going to heavyweight.
They've never put on gloves in their life, Paulie. That's why. Speaking of Beterbiev, he obviously dispatched of Deines, who in round 10, who was pretty stubborn, to be fair. I watched that fight, and although it was a dominant display, there was a stubbornness to Deines that decided he wasn't going to go easily. He was going to have to be really, really punished almost in order to get him out of there.
And that's the thing about Beterbiev. He's not a guy who has a lot of razzmatazz. He just kind of comes in there and destroys you. So you kind of, if you don't have enough skill set to at least trouble him and win some rounds, you're just going to wind up being a guy who's deciding, okay, I'm going to tough this out and see if I can get him out of there. Again, I brought it up last week. I'll bring it up again. I don't think fighting Beterbiev in a completely technical way is going to last you. Is going to do you well. You might do you a few rounds, but eventually he does get to you. And Alexander Vostok had that experience where Vostok is an ex-Olympian and he's a really good boxer, but eventually may have troubled Beterbiev earlier. Beterbiev got to him, closed the gap, and finally got him out of there. My opinion, you got to fight him like Callum Johnson did, and that's it. If you don't, it's kill or be killed in there. Yeah. With Beterbiev, it's just the way you got to do it. Otherwise, you're gonna wind up like this past weekend where you got somebody who's just toughing it out. He's trying, but he's not really a threat to Beterbiev. He's not a threat. You never felt like Beterbiev was in any kind of danger to lose the fight or be in any kind of danger to the momentum of the fight starts shifting. It's just the guy was stubborn, he was tough, but it never. I don't think Beterbiev ever went back to his corner thinking, man, I've got my hands full tonight.
No. Is he the only person that could beat Canelo at this point? I know you don't think so, but as it stands, Canelo seems to be going through the weight divisions. He's yet to really have a proper look at light heavyweight.
Yeah, I don't think Canelo is a natural light heavyweight, so I don't think I don't think he's gonna face the biggest light heavyweight, the strongest light heavyweight, I think when you start going up to too many weight classes, you have to start picking which championship fights you want to take, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think Beterbiev probably would knock out Canelo, but I don't think that's even a fair question towards Canelo to have to fight Beterbiev. I think he's done a lot of weight classes, but when you start going to light heavyweight, he's probably got to start picking and choosing what his and take some calculated risks and not just all-out risks.
In the news this week, Terence Crawford has, I won't say hit out, but he's definitely made a statement basically saying that he is past looking at the Errol Spence fight. He said, "I'm not thinking or worried about Errol Spence anymore. That fight is beyond me. I don't need Spence, he needs me." This is one of the fights that the world really does want to see it. It's been brewing for a couple of years now. It doesn't look like it happens.
Nah, I don't. And if it happens, it seems like it's taking the route of the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight where it happens.
Yeah.
They're both past their prime. Disappointing. I get where Crawford's coming from. I mean, Spence offering him only 80-20 or 70-30 split. It's almost like you purposely pressing yourself out of the fight. I don't know if I can say that. That's way too big of a split. It's too large of a gap for that split for a guy like Crawford to take. So, I mean, if you're looking to do that, that's another way of turning down the fight, without turning it down, So you've probably got to start seeing other guys. I love the way Virgilio Ortiz looked over the weekend. Really good performance. Maurice Hooker is a good fighter, and he still fights with the determination and hunger. So in order to beat Maurice Hooker, you've got to know how to fight. You've got to be good. You've got to be determined. You've got to put them together. It was really impressive how Virgilio Ortiz took out Maurice Hooker, because Hooker himself showed a lot in the fight, and I think that a guy like Hooker continues to allow a guy like Virgilio Ortiz to keep maturing, keep getting better, because these are the kind of opponents that, not everybody can beat. Maurice Hooker, there's still a lot of guys Maurice Hooker can beat, but Virgilio Ortiz, in beating him and then in having to work to get the win, I feel like continues to not only get better, but continues to show himself to be a dangerous guy in and around these weight classes. And I think it's going to be pretty soon that these big names like Crawford and Spence are going to have to also start to consider a Virgilio Ortiz. I don't think he beats those guys quite yet, but he's starting to really show himself to be a must-watch TV guy and a guy who people should start paying attention to.
Also this week, the WBC president has said that he wants the man that seems to be lost in space right now, Deontay Wilder, fighting Dillian Whyte as a final eliminator. It's wishful thinking. I'm not sure if it happens. What do you think?
I love the fight. I think Dillian has not gotten his just due in his career. I think Dillian is a lot better than I think people think. I've watched Dillian a lot in his career, probably more than a lot of fans who talk about him. And I think him and Wilder's a really good fight, honestly, especially right now where Wilder's coming off a really bad loss. You don't know where he is psychologically. Obviously, Dillian, when he got knocked out by Povetkin, you say the same thing about that, right? But nonetheless, I think it's a very interesting eliminator, because it's an eliminator. It becomes an eliminator, but it's also very much a crossroads fight. Where would the loser go there? It's really interesting. But I like those fights because desperation breeds hunger and contempt.
I like it as well, and the thing is, I mentally coming off a loss, can have whatever effect on a fighter. At least I feel like I know what effect it has on Dillian Whyte. He's very, as soon as he loses, he's very vocal. You can kind of, have almost a bit of an observation as to where he's at right now and how he feels and his confidence and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas with Deontay Wilder, he's been out the ring for a while now. We've heard, numerous, let's call them accusations and comments from him. But I don't know if we ever see him in the ring again. I'm not sure if we do, what trainers he's with and all. I don't know anything, Yeah,
I agree with you. I think he's I don't know how to put this, but he's almost like he's lost his mind. I mean, granted, probably some people think that of me sometimes, but I mean, I feel like Deontay's falling into that category. Like he's really lost it. He was. I remember Deontay on the way up was such a likable guy. He had that southern charm to him, and really was a guy who had an exciting style, and you were almost enjoyed watching him continuously improve, and you enjoyed him and around him being around his team and everything. And then all of a sudden, it was just like he had this mentality started to come around him where you have to worship him or you can't be around him. You know what I'm saying? And it was almost like whoever wasn't worshiping him was like, axed, or cast away on the outside, and it was so weird because when you only have people like that around you, you start to live in a different reality. You start to live in a fake reality, and I feel like that's what happened to Deontay. He started talking about kingdoms and his people and serving he's the king and your king is coming. My man, dude, we're not living in 1400. You know what I'm saying? Like I get that you're king and everything. You want to feel like that, but you're talking about your fans that support you almost as like people beneath you, like, and not be it almost like as your subjects in a kingdom where you command everybody. Like, my guy, like that's a little too extreme.
It's too much.
Yeah, we're not living in the Braveheart days or the Gladiator days. Like it's too much. I get from a psychological point of view. You can think that in order to get yourself pumped up, but you don't speak that way consistently. And the fact that he has only yes men around him has maybe put him in a position where he's now lost all touch with reality. So it got to the point where even the accusations for the Fury fight just got way out of hand. I mean, he didn't know what to say anymore because everybody around you that's only allowed to be around you are the only the people that are okay with you speaking this way. Nobody's putting you in check anymore. Nobody's telling you like, guy, keep that one to yourself. Don't say that one publicly.
You can't go after 10 different stories and blame 10 different things, or it looks stupid. 100%. I'm not sure where he's gonna be, but he's still got his right hand.
He sure does.
Yeah, and if it lands, you're in trouble.
I'll tell you what, Dillian's a great trash talker. Dillian would jump all over this kind of thing. Those press conferences would be class. You could charge $4.99 pay-per-view price for press conferences, and then the full pay-per-view price for the fight itself. And then put into consideration that it's a crossroads fight of enormous proportions for both guys. I think this is so much potential to be a really fun fight. I'm a fan of it. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I like it. Suleiman, get it done. This coming weekend, we have, speaking of Dillian Whyte, we have the big one. This is one, I don't know how, because it's had a couple of date changes, it's slipped under the radar a little bit and people might not realize it is here. But Dillian Whyte, Alexender Povetkin is everything for him, for Dillian Whyte. It's almost as if his entire career is almost dependent on this fight now, because he's taken a lot of tough fights that he didn't necessarily need to take. He was already in mandatory positions and so forth. He took one against Povetkin, got beat, and now if you get beat again, I'm not sure if there's a way back.
Yeah, sets you back, and you're right about the fights, the tough fights he was taking that really got him nowhere, but yet he still wanted to stay in tough. Like, I remember the Oscar Rivas fight. Bro, Oscar Rivas was legitimately a tough guy, undefeated. Mm-hmm. Like, people were talking about him, and Dillian got in there and did his thing with this guy, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it was like, okay, and he's the kind of opponent who everybody knew was dangerous, but hadn't yet built up enough of a name. So guys like Dillian shouldn't be fighting guys like that because they're thinking, like, what does it do for me? But Dillian got in there and fought him anyway and beat him well. So maybe the mileage on him caught up to him. I don't know. Honestly, I can't call it a lucky punch that Povetkin landed because you can tell he set it up very well. That dip after the initial punch that he threw and then throw the uppercut, you can see that's a move that you work on. For whether a counter shot from Dillian comes or not, you're making that move anyway. That's something that you use as a decoy. The jab, you're using it as a decoy to change the angle. And if you get Dillian's reaction, which is to freeze instead of step back or step around, you have him at an angle now where you can throw that hard uppercuts. I mean, it worked out perfectly, but it was a design shot by Povetkin, so you can't call it lucky. But nonetheless, he tried it at the right time in the fight. It just worked out for him. You know, if he tries it at a different time, maybe Dillian's going to take a different step in that moment, and then, you know, the uppercut's not going to be there to land. You know, timing is everything in life and in the ring for sure. But it was a fight Dillian was winning easily, let's face it. You know, now it's just really a matter of the psychology. How is he coming back from taking that massive shot? I'll tell you what you can hang your hat on if you're a Dillian Whyte fan, though. You can hang your hat on this. Dillian took a bad knockout loss to AJ and came back and had a major run since that loss. You know, that was a bad knockout, and it did not affect him one bit. So let's see if he has the same stubbornness and mental wherewithal to be the guy he has been for these years and show that in the rematch. I'm very curious about this weekend's fight as well.
I feel like he does. You know, regardless of that loss, up until the knockout, it was probably the best I've seen Dillian Whyte box for a long, long time. So I am going to stick my neck out and I'm going to say that we get a Dillian Whyte win this weekend. What can I get from you?
I'm going with Dillian. Dillian's always been one of my favorite guys to watch.
I mean, I'm betting that it is going to be a Whyte victory, but I wouldn't say I'd be totally surprised or surprised at all if Povetkin pulled it off again. Absolutely not. It's the heavyweight division and he's a top fighter.
He's a boogeyman.
Yeah, he is the boogeyman. He almost had AJ going. He's a tough cookie.
Because he's not going to win a championship anymore, but he's still going to knock your championship dreams out of the way if you're not careful.
Exactly. Right, it is a busy week or a busy day for On This Day. A lot has happened. In 1983, Larry Holmes beat Lucian Rodriguez. In 1979, Larry Holmes beat Osvaldo Ocasio. And in 1974, George Foreman KO'd Ken Norton. I'm sure there's another one from Larry Holmes somewhere knocking around as well. Joe Louis in 1942 beat Abe Simon. And in 1968, Muhammad Ali beat Zora Foley. A lot of those on these days were dominated by the heavyweights. Who would win in a boxer tournament? Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, or Joe Louis?
I don't know, somebody with a fast pace. None of those guys. You know what? I'm going to say Foreman won a gold medal. Ali won a gold medal. Because you have to start looking at who was effective as an amateur in the short pace. So, say between Ali and Foreman, but in a short fight, Ali wouldn't be able to rope a dope, so he'd have to take on Foreman at his strongest, I don't know, man. Maybe Foreman's got more of an advantage in a boxer and under the boxer format, If you take away the rope a dope from Ali, you never know.
That's the one that I had my tick next to George Foreman. He's a nightmare to fight. In the 3 threes and 12 threes, 15 threes, it doesn't matter. He's a nightmare to fight.
But in 3 threes, you've got to fight him. You've got no choice. If you want to win, so you got to take it to that guy. And probably you can find a lot better things you'd rather do.
I'm sure there's even more. There's more. Yes, the big one, the one that you're gonna love the most, probably, Paulie. In 1995. I wonder if you can guess it before I even say it. 1995, this week, Arturo Gatti.
Oh, Wilson Rodriguez, yes.
What a win.
I remember I saw an interview with Arturo about that fight, and he had said that he wasn't thinking about losing in the fight. In the moment when he got dropped, he was thinking he just bought a really expensive sports car. And when he's down, he's like, oh my God, I've got to get up. I've got to pay this car off. A couple of months later, after this fight in the summer, because this was more... Arturo Gatti was in a wild car chase with his Dodge Viper. That was a sports car. And he took the cops on a wild car chase. He wouldn't stop when they tried to pull him over. And when they finally got to him, he just kind of fell out of his car drunk. He couldn't even stand. So that was Arturo was one of the wildest guys. I mean, I would run into him in nightclubs. I can't even... First of all, I'm not even going to put him out there on the podcast, but was really a lot of fun to be around, man. Really a lot of fun, but could get you in trouble. Let's put it that way.
Of course, like most boxers, like all the good ones. Right, guys, that is all we have for this week. I hope you have enjoyed it. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know who you think is going to win this weekend out of the Povetkin and Whyte fight and all the others as well. Stay locked to Boxer. We will be bringing you more and more unfiltered boxing news. Yes, people, I am Savage Dan.
I'm Paulie Malignaggi.
You are watching Mouthpiece, the official boxing podcast.
We are two of the most knowledgeable, two of the most charismatic, biggest personality guys in boxing, and we are two of the coolest cats talking about the sport today.